Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo saranto sucedoye olahudi sanmyao sanputoshe.
Namo saranto sucedoye alahati samyo sambuddhase.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master, Dharma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture today. My name is Heng. It's Sunday, May 21st, heading towards Gemini here in Australia. It is Saturday, May 20th, back in California. Please locate yourself accordingly. Delighted to have you here today. We're going to be looking into the chapter 39, the concluding chapter of the Flower Garland Sutra called Entering the Dharma Realm, also known as Ru Fa Jie Pin, also known as the Gandavyuha chapter, where it's an epic tale. It's a pilgrimage. It's a story of a young man's making his way from ordinary living being to Buddhahood in a single lifetime. Let's get started and do our invocation. There we are. And this is interactive. You can all take part if you'd like to. You can put your poems together if you care to, and make a request. Namo Tafang Gong Po Jing O Pusa Namo Tafang Gong Po Jing O Pusa But wait, there's more. We want to say that the Kombumerri people of the Ugambi language region practice spiritual connections to land and to all creation here in this location for tens of thousands of years. Today we acknowledge them as traditional custodians and original storytellers of these lands. We offer our respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and to all First Nations people whose sovereignty was never ceded. 就说空不mer人在他们祖先的土地上修炼着他们与土地和 和万物的精神联系已有数万年。今天我们承认他们是这些土地的传统监护人和原始讲故事的人，并且向他们过去、现在和先行的长老们表示敬意，以及主权从未破格让所有第一民族人民们表示敬意。Okay, and I want to say that we've got a beautiful bell to celebrate the bell song, and I hope that this bell sound, let me make sure we've got our original sound on. Yes, so this bell sound should widely resound throughout 100 million Zoom clients and YouTube apps. Ready? The traditional way of doing it is to ring it a lot. But I think that interferes with the resonance of the bell, so let's let it sing. Here we go. Bell sound wide resounds throughout 100 million worlds. The Buddha's law is heard and spread all throughout the triple world. The wondrous sounds that everywhere fill the Dharma realm with peace. May those who hear it gain the strength to follow in faith the Buddha's path. 众生传3000界内，佛法扬万亿国中，共训其法界和平，利益报他那后的。Indeed. There we go. Put that away for now. Yeah, we may, let's see if we bring that, we might keep that around for, okay. Got it. So, welcome again. Here's today's text. Let me give you a background so you know what we're about here. This is the Flower Garland Sutra, Huayanjing. And I want to say how much I appreciate folks translating the things I'm saying in English into both Mandarin Chinese and also into Vietnamese. And what that allows me to do is to keep my thoughts moving in one language, which is a benefit for making a point, making an argument, developing a line of the text without having to switch an entire metaphor base, an entire base of humor, for example. Hard to tell a joke in a foreign language, convincingly. So because translators are helping me, we really have a team going for translations into Chinese and to Vietnamese. Two of the world's Mahayana cultures, I might add. If we said, why isn't there a Spanish translation? Spanish-speaking countries have not yet been host to an indigenous Mahayana tradition. So the images have a few more obstacles to overcome before they ring true, before they hit that spot where we go, yeah, oh, I remember my grandma or my grandpa saying, yes, that was true for me. I never saw my grandpa or grandma, bow to the Buddha, for example. But in China, there's a centuries, millennia-old cultural memory of people taking just having the vocabulary, having the word Pusa, Bodhisattva, Bodat in Vietnamese, having it available, and correctly or incorrectly, maybe distorted by culture. It's a two-edged sword. Sometimes the culture moves those images away from the original Buddhist meaning, but we've got those idioms in our memory bank if we come from a culture where Buddhism has been around for a while. So that's what that does is it gives us the opportunity to plant those ideas, those images, those memes, those metaphors deeply from the start here in our own new culture of Australia, United States, Canada, Mexico, Spain, Latin America, Brazil. Imagine Brazilian Buddhism is going to be a wonderful thing, replete with samba. So there's both an opportunity and obstacles at the same time. Okay, so just having expressed my gratitude for that. Talking about today's program, we're going to be presenting, so let me put that in the context of the sutra. The sutra is, our Avatamsaka Sutra is, you can say, made up of two major parts. One part is chapter 1 to chapter 38, and in that first part, we're hearing about the Buddha's teaching on how bodhisattvas should think, speak, and live in theory. This is the theory of the bodhisattva path. It's, hypothetical. It's the textbook example of what a bodhisattva should be. That's the first 38 chapters of the sutra. That's the contents are, there are 38 chapters. In size, it's 3/4 of the sutra. Now we have one more chapter, or strictly speaking, two more, but that last chapter 40 is just brief. Two more chapters, which make up an entire quarter of the sutra. 25% of the sutra is two chapters, 39 and 40. We are looking into 39. And what this does is it takes the 38 chapters worth of theory and it puts it into practice. So everything that we've learned about from chapter 1 to chapter 39 is now taken out onto the road by an individual whose name is Sudana Shansai Tongzi. And this individual is a young man. He's full of blessings. The sutra points out that he's a special guy. He brings to this pilgrimage a lot of resources. He's got blessings. He's had a happy life, and wherever he goes, he makes others happy too. He's a leader of other, what are called tongzi, other young men and women who, by being called a tongzi, the traditional translation is a pure youth. And pure, how do we define that? We can just say that his mind is not as complicated as, let's say, the average child growing up in Paris in difficult times, where you've been exposed to all kinds of suffering and confusion and distortion from life's pleasures, let's say, which is available to a young boy in Paris growing up. I remember being challenged on Le Métro in Paris by a young boy who I would say was probably 12. And he was he was very frank. He came up and he wanted to know, qu'est-ce que cela veut dire? What are you? Comment c'est ça? What is this? C'est ça comment? Wanting to know why I had a shaved head and wearing a robe and looking like I did. And he couldn't have been more than 12 years old, but all of my intuitive senses saw him as about 40. His body was maybe 12 years old, but his mind and his experiences were that of a 40-year-old man. He was over the hill at age 12. He just seen too much. right? So a tongzi would be the opposite of that in terms of culture. Someone who has most of his own virtue intact still. So Sudana is like that. He's a tongzi, and he leads 500 other tongzi who are tianzhen wuxie, you know, their nature is still full of all of the goodness that they started with. So not cynical. Shanzai Tongzi is not cynical. He is, if anything, what would be the opposite of cynical? He is the D-O-C-I-L-E, docile. Docile, he's always presented as somebody who is willing to bow. He wants to bow. He's always kind of bending. 折腰, they say. He's always bending his waist. And docere, the Italian, the Latin verb means to easily led, able to be led. In other words, student. Sudana is a student. He's the student par excellence. He wants to learn. And as his pilgrimage gets going, and we're not there yet, we're not at that part of the chapter, but it's the next step coming up. The first teacher who initiates Sudana on what's to come for him is a bodhisattva whose name is Manjushri, Wanshushri Pusa, and I can point him out. He's right there. He's on the right of your screen, on the Buddha's left. Okay, there he is. And Manjushri Bodhisattva teaches bodhisattvas how to walk the bodhisattva path, and Samantabhadra Bodhisattva over there, holding the ru'i in his hands, Samantabhadra teaches bodhisattvas how to practice bodhisattva practices. So those are the two questions that Sudana asks each of his 52 teachers. How do I, 如何行菩萨道, 如何修菩萨行? He says, how do I walk the bodhisattva path? How do I cultivate the practices that bodhisattvas practice? Those are his two questions. Manjushri starts him out. Samantabhadra concludes the instruction. So Sudana is a student. And so our chapter, our pilgrimage that we're about to embark on and experience is Samantabhadra learning. And we, by extension, get to look over his shoulder. We get to learn along with him. We get to audit. He's taking the class for credit. We're taking the class as auditors. So that's why this sutra is so good, so instructive, and so much fun, because we vicariously get to learn how to do what Sudana wants to do, which is learn bodhisattva practices and cultivate the bodhisattva path. So now, we're not there yet. We are in the prelude, the preamble, and in the preamble to it, what is happening is there are certain formalities that have to take place before the sutra can get going. And we're now officially more than halfway through the preambles. And what is happening is bodhisattvas have come in from all 10 directions to attend the Buddha's teaching. And they come with followers, and they're identified by the directions of the countries they come from, and the Buddhas in those countries who started them out. And each of the bodhisattvas praises the Buddha or the Dharma or the Sangha. They sing. You could say it's spoken word poetry. It's a kind of hip-hop equivalent. And we're now listening to them sing to the Buddha. We've listened to 6 different directions worth of bodhisattvas worth of praises from bodhisattvas in 6 of 10 directions. And because they chant, they sing, we have been using music for the Chinese part, which is very regular, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 verses, 5 words, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words, 20 in all. That's easy to put a melody to it. The English, not so easy because the lines are all different length. So we've just been giving them kind of a Shakespearean soliloquy kind of reading of the English, enunciating, presenting the ideas clearly so that you can hear them, we can hear them with our ears, let them filter into our consciousness, and picking out a few to explain, but we're not doing a full line-by-line version. It would simply take too long. So, okay, that brings us up to speed, and we're ready to start. Okay. So here we go. 尔时破一切魔君至床王菩萨，成佛神力观察十方而说颂言。At that time, Bodhisattva King Wisdom Banner, who vanquishes all demon armies, aided by the Buddha's spiritual power, contemplated the 10 directions and chanted these verses. "知身非是身，不爱难思议。是有思议者，一切不能及。从不思议也。其次清净身，殊特妙庄严，无照于三界。光明，I'm sorry, one more time. 光明照一切，法界悉清净，开佛菩提门，出生中智慧。譬如世间耳，无方慧光明，远离诸尘垢。灭除一切障，不尽三有处，永绝生死流，成就菩萨道，出生无上觉。Back to the top here. 实现无边思，此思无一处。所现难虽无量，一切不思议。菩提一念清，能觉一切法。云何成此量？如来之遍际，一念悉明达，一切三世法。无说佛智慧，无见无能坏。智者应如是，传思佛菩提，此思难思议，思之不可得。And finally, come back. Last one. 菩提不可说。Let's see, did I get the right one? I want to make sure I got it. There it is. Okay. Here we go. 菩提不可说，超过语言路。诸佛从此生，十法难思议。 Okay, and the theme, let's do the English first before we talk about it. Here we go. The wisdom body is not this body. It's unobstructed, hard to imagine. Even could it be imagined, in all things, it would be unsurpassed. From inconceivable karma, this pure body arises, a supreme, wonderful adornment, unattached to the three realms. Its light illumines all things. The Dharma realm is purified. Disclosing the Buddha's door of Bodhi, it brings forth all wisdom. Like the sun in the world, it universally emits wisdom light. Far apart from dust and defilement, it destroys all obstructions. It universally cleanses the three realms of existence and stops forever the flow of birth and death. In accomplishing the Bodhi way, one brings forth the unsurpassed awakening. He manifests boundless forms, yet these forms rely on no place. Although their appearances are limitless, they are completely inconceivable. In even a single instant of Bodhi, one can awaken to all dharmas. How can one hope to fathom the scope of the Tathagata's wisdom? In one thought, he completely understands all dharmas of the three periods of time. Thus, one says the Buddha's wisdom is without end and indestructible. Wise ones should, in such a way, single-mindedly contemplate the Buddha's Bodhi. This contemplation is hard to imagine. It cannot be attained through thinking or through ChatGPT. Bodhi is inexpressible, transcending the path of language. All Buddhas are born from it. This Dharma is hard to conceive of. There we go. Okay, what is he praising this time? So our Bodhisattva is here praising wisdom. He starts out by saying this, he's the body, the wisdom body can't be thought of. The word inconceivable comes up 4 or 5 times in these 10 verses. It's a challenge because why? The Bodhisattva is talking about things that he sees, that he knows, that are present to him, right there in front of him. He's talking about the Buddha's wisdom body. He knows what he's talking about. It's not a philosophical point. It's not an abstract thing. It's a real thing for the Bodhisattva. For us, because we're stuck in conceivability, we're stuck in things that we can describe, that we can know with our senses. So for us, it's abstract. It's like, take it on faith. I'll take it on faith. Because why? What's our choice? Well, take it on faith. Faith is not puny. Faith is not weak. Faith is through completely understanding that the Buddha is not here to sell us books. The Buddha is not here to hoping we'll join his party or his religion. None of that. The Buddha is here the way a doctor brings medicine when you're sick. Is the medicine of the doctor an abstraction? Do you have to kind of, join the team, forget the medicine to work? No, it's not. The medicine is there to talk to one aspect of existence, which is sickness, illness. If you're sick, if you're really, really sick, when the doctor comes with a method to cure us, we don't debate it. We don't say, well, 可有可无, 50-50. No, you say, please use your skill, use your kindness to heal what's wrong with me, because the illness that I'm struggling with the illness I'm struggling with completely threatens my well-being. I need the medicine to continue with my life in a way that I want to survive, So that's the issue with illness. And here we go. The Buddha is here like that for us. Our illness is not a sickness of the body, it's a sickness of wisdom. Our wisdom, from the point of view of the Buddha's well-being, we are profoundly sick with a fundamental illness called mortality, birth and death. That's what afflicts us and all creatures with a life. Why do we die? It's because we were born. Being born is the primary cause of our death. So all things that come into being pass away. So, okay, from the Buddhist point of view, that's an illness that's curable. It's curable. And yet, totally wrapped in our consciousness with our afflictions, we don't even know we're sick. We're not aware that it's a mortal illness that we have. So how could we appreciate the Buddha's wisdom and this wisdom body, which is the first, I'll show you here. What's the first line of our song that he just sang? Bring it up here. The wisdom body is not this body, the one that I'm talking from, that you're listening from. It's unobstructed. It's hard to imagine. You can't think of it. Even if you could, it would still be, suppose you could imagine it, it would still be containing every tree, every cloud, every insect, every blade of grass would all be included in that wisdom body. How could you put it into language? But the Bodhisattva is saying totally real. It's real. It exists. Furthermore, we all have a share in it. We all can, there's a door open from where we are now to the existence of that body. Where does it comes from? Inconceivable karma, just doing good, refusing to do bad. This pure body arises. It's unattached, it's supremely adorned, it's magnificently beautiful. It shines with light. It is radiant. The light of the Dharma, the wisdom body purifies the Dharma realm. Wisdom comes from it. He says it's like the sun. What does the sun do? The sun shines everywhere in the world without exception. There's no place where the sun doesn't shine unless we choose to hide from it. And that light destroys all darkness. The sun blasts through every bit of darkness and cleans three realms of existence. Birth and death stops, the Bodhi way is realized, and you wake up from the Buddha's wisdom. How do you like our poet? He's really singing the good stuff, right? He's praising wisdom. And yeah, wisdom's really good. The Buddha's wisdom, this body that appears when we increase our cultivation to the point of completion, that wisdom body breaks through all of the darkness. Boundless forms appear, yet the forms are not limited to any location on the planet. They have limitless appearances. You can't think about them. But when we have that Bodhi awakening, what happens is all dharmas are available to us in one instant of Bodhi. How can we get there? How can we get to the Tathagata's wisdom? In a single thought, we can understand all dharmas of the three periods of time. That wisdom is endless, and you can't stop it. Wise people like this contemplate the Buddha's wisdom. Can't even imagine how to contemplate it. You can't think of it. I like this line. You can't get it through thinking. Think your way to the Buddha's wisdom. Nope, that won't do it. But you can't, when you get there, it's not that thinking stops either. Thinking is still there. You can't express it. It goes beyond language. All Buddhas come from it. It's hard to conceive of. So, cool. This is nice. This is a theme. Our poet, our Bodhisattva who's singing here, he's got this theme of the Buddha's wisdom. He's done a really good job of giving us a flavor of it. And for him, he knows what he's singing about, but it's not that he's teasing us, saying, it's really real, but you can't think of it. It's really real, but you can't imagine it. It's really real, but you're never going to get there in language, in thinking. So, okay, I can't resist. I can't hold myself back. Take this teaching about the inconceivability of the Buddha's wisdom and how language doesn't go there, and ask yourself, what about artificial intelligence and large language models like ChatGPT 3.5 or 4, whatever you want to, whatever aspect you want of it, and say, we heard today from an Israeli thinker and author who's impressed lots and lots of forward-looking individuals. His name is Yuval Noah Harari. I have several of his books and listened to the things he says. He's a historian looking back and forward. Harari says that the AI, and that includes the ChatGPT is the model that people are talking about most, because it's just of all the different models, it's come forward. There's also Bing, and there's also Google's version Bard, which is going to be integrated into your search engine soon. Harari says that AI, which includes all these different models, all these different generative AI, they're called. He says it has hacked the operating system of humanity. Got it? Like a hacker hacking into your computer. AI has hacked into the operating system of humanity, which is, drum roll, language, he says. So that's kind of where we are. And people are going, yeah, that's scary. And if you want to pin it down to cases, talk about, let's say you're a professor at a college or a university or an academy or a training. Suppose you're a certification office. Let's say you are training civil servants, and there's a civil service exam that you have to take. And if that exam contains an essay function, let's say you've got to write an essay to pass your civil service exam, you're going to be concerned right now because students, large and small, and myself included, are able to use a generative intelligence app to author an essay, right? If you don't believe me, find your local access to ChatGPT or whichever model you want, ask it to give it a paragraph and say, okay, please fill in the gaps, and say this in another way, and you can tweak it by saying, say it in the voice of Shakespeare, or say it in the voice of Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, and hit generate. What will come back is a better essay than you could write without the aid of the large language model. Professors near and far, and this is culturally non-specific, it can do it in any language. It can do it in New Delhi, it can do it in, Guangdong, Guangzhou, it can do it in, Jakarta or Paris. What comes back from the artificial intelligence function is a better essay than you could write in the voice of Shakespeare or Plato, Socrates. So this is, people, as I say, near and far are going, oh my goodness, wow, that's really scary, because this is an alien intelligence, and we're giving it, at some point we say, yeah, I'll use it because I get better results than I can from my own carbon-based gray matter, my brain. And it has mastered language in a way that humans have not, because it has accessible to it a large language model. Means everything ever spoken, everything ever written is scanned and resourced and presented to me to answer my question. And then I submit that to my public service, my exam for entering the bureaucracy. Is that a plus or is that a loss for humanity is the question. Big question. Now, take that issue and look at it in terms of our verse right here. Wise ones should in such a way single-mindedly contemplate the Buddha's Bodhi. This contemplation is hard to imagine. It cannot be attained through thinking. There it is. 智者应如是专思佛菩提 此思难思议 思之不可得 Okay. The question is, what do we want? Do we want an essay for my social service exam, that I'm going to go into the bureaucracy, I'm going to be a public servant? Or do I want the Buddha's Bodhi? Do I want to have what's called 一切智, all wisdom, so that I can know all dharmas, meaning all of reality is available to me in a single thought? What's the difference? One difference is the AI chatbot, the robot, the algorithm is silicon-based. It only works because billions of transistors, which is a switch, goes on or off, based in sand, silicon is sand, and then fire, in other words, electricity. So it's two elements only. It's sand, carbon, or silicon that goes into the chip, and then the transistors have been soldered on there in a tiny, tiny size, but programmed in a way that they go on and they go off. They are 0 or 1 in a clever way that gives me a pattern that an engineer asks it to take. It's silicon, which is an earth element, and fire, 2 out of 4. Water and air are not there. Compare that to a carbon-based hydrocarbon, that is to say, a cell in the human body that is organized in a way that we call the Dharma. The algorithm in cultivation, from the Buddhist point of view, is the Dharma. And the Dharma is very much an algorithm. It's a mold, a fa. In Chinese, the word fa, Dharma, can also mean a mold. You imitate, you fa ta, you imitate him, you model after him or her in a way that is a pattern. So it's a pattern that produces ultimately Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Arhats, sages, Pratyeka Buddhas, wise people. Now, to do that requires earth, air, fire, and water, all those elements, in a way that has been reliably producing Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and sages since humanity stood up on 2 legs. And from the Buddha's description of it, when a world goes away, when a world goes through its fourth phase of destruction and is reborn again, 成住坏空, coming into being, abiding, decaying and vanishing, and then coming back, the Dharma is there again to start the pattern over, to offer the Tao, to offer the pattern to sentient creatures to cultivate again. That's why it's called 常住十方三十常住十方常住佛法僧, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha that is eternally abiding in the three directions, in the past, present, and future, in the 10 directions. So this algorithm doesn't go away. It's part of this is where it gets sticky, because what is it what is the agent that carries the Dharma gene, the algorithm? It's the Buddha nature. So it's sticky because what is the Buddha nature? Yeah, challenge. Is it consciousness? Is it something else? Is it a soul? That's another conversation. But living beings, sentient beings, arrive in a body or disembodied like the gods in the formless realm with that access, with the spark, with the seed of the Buddha nature, whatever you want to call it. And when you apply the Dharma and cultivate it, you can get to this Buddha's Bodhi. And in a single, as it says here, in a single instant of Bodhi, you can awaken to all Dharmas. You can understand reality better than a large language model, complete with all four elements, including compassion. Tong Ti Dabe, same body, great compassion. All bodies ever existed can come alive in this instant of Bodhi. The other thing that fascinates me about this, and it frustrates me at the same time, is with photography, we've taken the eye outside. We have exported vision into a camera and either, film or a digital light-sensitive chip that replaces film. But we've exported the act of seeing out to an external agent. With hi-fi, with stereo, with let's give it an MP3 file, a sound file, we have exported hearing out to an external, separate from the body. And then we think that's sound. It's called audio, and we need it to make a nice movie. We need it for our video. We catalog it in Spotify and Pandora and Apple Music and Google Music and Amazon Music. But that's sound. So we've taken two of our six senses and put them out. So we can manipulate them, we can reproduce them. And from the point of view of cultivation, the practice of the Dharma requires us to turn both of those functions around, we say. We turn the seeing back. We use the innate sight faculty that we come with and take charge of it, turn it, instead of simply using it until the body wears out and we die and we get another set that we still don't know how to use. We learn to master the senses and take charge of the senses that are inherent in our human existence as a sentient person in a human body. Hearing the same. We fan wen wen zi xing, turn the hearing around to listen to the self-nature. Take charge of our hearing. We don't, in the Chan school, there are these idioms, right? The six senses are thieves. They're the six thieves that steal our nature and shoot it out looking for better sights, happier sounds, getting rid of the negative sights and the sounds we don't like. So constantly operating external to the nature in a ultimately fruitless search for the perfection of sight and sound. We so much don't understand how to use our own sights and sounds that we send it outside in video and audio and still photographs, and you could say all art too is also the same principle, right? And there's beauty, it's outside. Once you learn to cultivate, we can take charge of those senses and use them to transform our nature and truly learn what's called zizai, self-mastery. Now, what ChatGPT and large language models, generative AI, all these chatbots, and the algorithms that are silicon-based, they're doing that same thing with the mind organ, which is scary, because why? This is what the Buddha's, what Master Hua was always telling us, is we haven't learned to operate what we came with, and we are throwing it outside, ignorant of what we came with and how to use it. We're externalizing it and giving agency to something external. We're simply doubling our ignorance. And from the point of view of the Buddhas and men and women who throughout history have done the work of Zheng Dao, realizing the Dao, it's like they shake their heads. It's ignorance on top of ignorance. We haven't learned to use the body that we have. The fundamental questions of consciousness in a body: where did I come from? Where am I going? How to live while I'm in this body? We haven't answered. We don't. We give it to externals. And now to give it entirely to what Harari calls this alien intelligence is really sad. It's really scary, because we've quit on something that is available to us, which is the Buddha's Dharma, to say, yeah, take the Dharma and learn to use what we have. But nope, we completely externalize it. Meanwhile, we were clueless about how to solve our own problems. And that's one of the arguments against planetary exploration. If we export civilization out to the moon or to Mars, we've got the seeds of our own destruction right in the very astronauts who will step out of the capsule onto the other planet. We haven't solved our fundamental issues, and yet we export them, we externalize them, and think that somehow there's value in creating an artificial chatbot, artificial intelligence. And the scary part, and Harari talks about this very convincingly in some of his latest lectures on this, and he's just one intellectual who is able to express the situation convincingly and clearly, but there are many, many, many conversations going worldwide now about AI. But Harari makes the point that artificial intelligence can teach itself. It's learning as it goes. So the speed with which this is developing is exponential. It's times 2, times 3. It grows, and its ability to learn increases as it learns. So it's now self-learning, because why? We are feeding it. The subject of artificial intelligence's growth is humanity. All the language that we put online is the resource that it consumes. So this conversation would have been impossible in February of this year. But since March, ChatGPT, as one of the well-funded chatbots, the others, Google and Bing, Bard and Bing and others, which are popping up everywhere. On Apple your iTunes app store. I've counted a dozen apps that are piggybacking on top of ChatGPT to, you say, ask your questions here, well, that's going to double and double and double. These are so brand new, they're so new, they're coming so quickly that it's a blizzard now of faculties of apps on your phone, on your computer, that are rolling downhill faster and faster and faster. And probably this time next year, this conversation will seem so redundant and so outdated and obsolete that we won't even be able to remember when we didn't depend upon artificial intelligence to solve our problems. Meanwhile, we're feeding this bottomless appetite for learning all of our weaknesses in every legal argument ever made, in every contractual decision ever made. The chatbot will learn how to take advantage of the mistakes that our limited intelligence, because we didn't have access to every word ever written or spoken, it will take advantage of those and find a way to exploit them to solve our problem for us. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, we hand over all decision capabilities to an algorithm which is so flawed and so partial from the point of view of the Buddha. More wisdom, more healing compassion from the Buddha. Are we ready? Here he is. 而是愿智光明传王菩萨成佛神力观察十方而说颂言. At that time, Bodhisattva wisdom of vows and radiant banner, aided by the Buddha's spiritual power, contemplated the 10 directions and chanted these verses. Here we go. O 能善观察，菩提无尽海，自得力持念，决定受持法。若得决定心，自能修茂妙行，禅机自思虑，永断诸疑惑。其心不疲倦，亦复无懈怠，辗转增进修，究竟诸佛法，心智已成就。Oh, sorry. Come back here. 心智已成就，年年龄增长。要常观察，无得无一法，无量一千劫，所修功德，一切悉回向，诸佛所求道，虽在于生死，而心无染照。安住诸佛法，常要如来行。世间之所有，缘界等诸法，一切皆舍利，专修佛功德。凡夫因往惑，于是常流转。菩萨心无碍，救之令解脱。菩萨恒难成，去世莫能思，偏除一切苦。 富裕群生乐. And the last one. 以获菩提智，福民诸群生，光明照世间，度脱一切众。Or, as they say in Poughkeepsie, he who can skillfully contemplate the limitless ocean of Bodhi can leave foolish thoughts and decisively receive and uphold the Dharma. Upon obtaining a decisive mind, he can cultivate wonderful practices. In the stillness of dhyana, meditating in solitude, he forever severs all doubts and delusions. Her mind is not weary, nor is she lax or lazy. Ever progressing in cultivation, she perfects all Buddha dharmas. The wisdom of faith is accomplished, and thought after thought it grows, always delighting in and contemplating the unobtainable Dharma that relies on nothing. Throughout measureless millions of thousands of kalpas, the practice of merit and virtue she cultivated are transferred completely to the way sought by all Buddhas. Although she dwells in birth and death, her mind is not defiled or attached. Peacefully, she dwells in all Buddha dharmas and always delights in the Tathagata's practices. All that exists in the world, the skandhas, the realms, and all such dharmas, she leaves behind to exclusively seek the Buddha's qualities. Common mortals hold childish, false delusions. Constantly they turn and flow in the world. The Bodhisattva's mind is unobstructed. He rescues them and brings about their liberation. It's hard to praise highly enough the Bodhisattva's practice. Throughout all worlds, it's impossible to imagine how he pervasively relieves all anguish and everywhere bestows joy upon all beings. Having obtained Bodhi's wisdom, his empathy towards the multitudes abides. His light illumines the world and crosses over all creatures. All right. Now, as I was reading through this one, it's clear that this set of 10, this Bodhisattva who is singing for us, composing for us on the spot, is charting out the career of cultivation of an individual. Right? Is that what's happening as far as you see? This Bodhisattva is giving us like the long view of start to finish, from beginning to success, of somebody who wants to walk the Bodhisattva path. See if you agree, right? So here's somebody, let's say a beginner, maybe it's you, maybe it's me, and I was using a feminine pronoun here. You too can. You can use any gender you want here, it doesn't matter. It is gender non-specific. Let's say, here's somebody, a beginner. They can contemplate the ocean of Bodhi, and they leave their foolish thoughts behind and receive and uphold the Dharma decisively. So, I'm going to cultivate. I want to do that. Okay? Looking at the ocean of Bodhi. It's so long. It's vast like an ocean. I leave foolish thoughts behind and set out. I get a decisive mind. That's word twice. It's 决定, it says here. You have to really want to do it. You can't be wavering as you start out. Cultivate wonderful practices. Maybe it's meditation, maybe it's bowing, maybe it's generosity, but you do it, and in the stillness of dhyana, meditating in solitude, you sever your doubts and delusions. So this is somebody who's already picked up meditation. Here it is, in the stillness of dhyana. Maybe it's 2 a.m., maybe it's 11 p.m., and you can't get to sleep because you just are determined this time to make it work for you. You meditate in solitude. You can hear the traffic flowing by outside. You can hear the birds rustling in their nests, but you keep sitting. You sever all doubts and delusions. It's working for you. Your mind is not weary. You're not lax or lazy. You progress in cultivation. You perfect all dharmas. Vigor, patience and vigor. The wisdom of faith is accomplished. Passive voice translation here, I would do it differently. In thought after thought it grows. Your wisdom is working. It's the more, let me say it again. Faith is working for you because why? You see the fruition of faith. Your meditation is now giving you the stillness that allows you to solve problems. Things that you didn't understand before, you can get it now. Because why? Your samadhi is giving you the ability to reflect the pieces that come together in a solution that works. It's working for you. So that wisdom of faith is accomplished, right? Thought after thought it grows. Now you're happy because stuff is making sense for you. And I like this verse here. You delight in contemplating the Dharma that you can't get, that doesn't stay anywhere. It has no address, and it's completely independent. But there it is. It's yours. If you pick it up, and it's yours. And then your mind is expanding, and you see that you've been doing this for a while, and you transfer the merit of the accomplishment you transfer it, and what happens when you make transference? You got connections to the beings who you give your merit to. Now, so that's as I said, this is it's an overview of the career of cultivation of some individual. Maybe it's you. The Bodhisattva's here praising it, right? So you dwell in birth and death, you abide there, your mind is clean, you're happy with the Dharma that you practice, and you imitate the Buddhas joyfully. For you now, it's not a pain, it's not awful, it's delightful. You leave behind your body, the realms, the mind, to seek the Buddha's merit. Common mortals, I would not translate it that way. It sounds like a slam, sounds judgmental. Say ordinary beings. Ordinary beings who are based on what? Fear, essentially, or addictions, or just habits so strong you can't see around them. So as a result, you cling to wrong views. Stuff that one step outside of it and you see that it's unreliable, right? Giving leadership to a celebrity who is accused and is, by a judge of his peers, adjudged a criminal, to follow that person as a leader seems like a childish false delusion to me. That's not going to, how is that going to come out for you? To say, I give all power to somebody whose judgment is flawed. Not going to work, right? That's not going to lead you to where you want to go, or your children, or your neighbors. Oh my. People outside of the U.S. at this point are going, can we trust you now? We saw what happened the last time you gave leadership to someone mentally ill, someone with a delusion. But we look to you to lead us, a leading nation, the richest, most powerful nation in the world, led by a sociopath. We're scared, they say. Okay. Hard to praise highly enough the Bodhisattva's practice. The Chinese, this is very interesting, Pusa Heng Nan Sheng. Just say, Bodhisattva practices hard to praise. Throughout all worlds, hard to imagine. Pervasively relieves anguish, gives joy to living beings. The great physician is the name for the Buddha. Having attained Bodhi's wisdom, his empathy towards the multitudes is there. His light illumines the world, takes us across. Thank you, Bodhisattvas, for this praise. Wow, so good. Okay, what time we got here? I went off so long on the discussion of ChatGPT that I only gave us 2 verses. what that lets us do is next week we'll do the last two. There are only two more. Look at this. Here we go. That's one. That's two. And then what follows? Nothing. We're done with scroll 60. We'll do that. We'll do two sets of verses next week, and then we're through with the preamble with the beginning of chapter 39. Now, what I want to give the next section of today's talk to is something special that I found today and was very impressed with. I'll go to the top of it. Here we go. This is it's called call it an advisory. It's a report by the United States Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, who, when he became Surgeon General, was the youngest ever. He's a native of Karnataka, southern India, who was raised in the UK and then in his early years came to the US. I'll show you his picture. It's a lovely gentleman. There he is, Dr. Murthy. Take a look at him here. There he is, nice smile. Nice guy. He has been Surgeon General for 3 American presidents, for Obama and Trump, and now for Biden. He's the chief doctor. He's the #1 doctor. He is in charge of the well-being of a nation. And what has he paid attention to the point where he got all of his researchers, all of the doctors and medical professionals, healing professionals under his command. He had them focus on one major issue now that he called an epidemic. Now, Dr. Murthy was in charge during COVID as well, but COVID is now behind us, or it's been incorporated. It's not over, but it's not an epidemic. He says the one to worry about, because why? It is killing us, shortening our lifespan and ruining the quality of our life, is called loneliness and isolation. And notice how skillful he, in his title, his subtitle, he says it positively: the healing effects of social connection and community. So this is one of those things that you hear about it on the radio and then it's just downstream. Nobody pays attention to it. Oh yeah, the government issued something. That would be a mistake, because look at the language, epidemic. An epidemic is something that makes everybody sick and is catching. And here's our #1 doctor in America who knows what he's talking about, very smart, and a kind-hearted guy. When you hear Dr. Murthy speak, he has one of those voices that kind of makes you feel better just by listening to his voice. He's a real healing doctor who has healed thousands and thousands of patients one-on-one at the bedside, but now he was elevated to the man in charge of the health of a nation. That's what the Surgeon General is, and it has been a woman in the past. President Clinton appointed a woman to the job. So what is this about? He says that humans are social animals, and that to be healthy and well in our bodies, we need to be connected to other humans. He says that COVID was a time of isolation, But more importantly, he says, is the current trend towards virtual relationships over flesh and blood relationships. We are disconnected from society, and the introduction is why social connection matters. And he says it is so important to our very lives that I'll show you one of these wonderful, he's got a great graphic here that was shocking. And this is one of the takeaways that all, when a journalist reports, this is one of the things that they take away from to catch your attention. Coming up here, I had it up earlier. Sorry for the scrolling here. Lacking social connection is as dangerous as smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. So, if you smoke 15 cigarettes a day, pretty much people worldwide have agreed that your health is at risk. This will shorten your life. Look at it will kill you to be without social connection more rapidly than smoking 15 cigarettes, drinking 6 alcoholic drinks, never exercising, being obese, or inhaling air pollution. These are by far less harmful to your very life as being socially isolated. How important is it? And the report is really, really well done. I scanned it. It's available. I want to, let's see. I had it on my browser. I want to give folks the, let's see, where's my history here? Okay, I'm going to type in the title so you all can find it on your own. Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation, 2023. It's really worth reading. It's really well done. And it's one of those things where every claim has a footnote. There it is. Health and Human Services. Please pass this on, Locke and Jerry, if you will. There we go. Put that out into YouTube and give people a link so you can find it on your own. It's really worth reading. What he does is he talks about the situation that he, as our national doctor, Surgeon General, is concerned about. And then the report is so well done that he spends many pages giving us the cures and antidotes that he and his team of researchers and doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists and all, that they all recommend for ways to deal with the epidemic. This is the medicine. So he is truly a doctor. He gives us the medicine for individuals. I keep scrolling and scrolling around here. What individuals can do, what parents and caregivers can do for children, what media and entertainment industries can do, what technology companies can do, what community-based organizations can do, what workplaces can do, what school and education departments can do, what philanthropists can do, and finally, researchers and research institutions can do, what public health professionals and public health departments can do, and health workers, healthcare systems, and insurers, what national, territory, state, local, and tribal governments can do to alleviate, to make a difference to this epidemic. And I thought what I can do is give a little bit of time in the lecture today to talk about individuals, how to deal with our crisis of loneliness and isolation. Let's look at these one by one. Understand the power of social connection and the consequences of social disconnection. So pay attention. You say, big problem, epidemic, disease. Social connection is necessary for our health. So relationships, what is the tie into Buddhism? The Bodhisattva is concerned with relationships. That's what the precepts do. We don't kill, we foster life. That's a relationship. We don't steal, we foster well-being with material. It's a relationship. We don't cheat, we keep our vows. Relationships. We don't lie. The vital relationship of integrity and honesty. We don't drug ourselves or others. We cherish wisdom and insight and clarity. Those are all relationships, right? So, invest time in nurturing those relationships. Minimize distraction during conversation. Put your phone down when we're talking. Take time each day to reach out to a friend or family member. Seek out opportunities to serve and support others by helping family, coworkers, friends, strangers. Participating in community service. Service. Get out and shovel your neighbor's walk. Sweep your neighbor's leaves. Water your neighbor's, shrubs. And work with them. Be responsive, supportive, and practice gratitude. How important to say thank you. Others will reciprocate, improving relationship satisfaction, building social capital. Actively engage with people of different backgrounds and experiences. Oh man. How vitally important is this, to not be afraid of people who are different. Remember, after 9/11, there was a couple weeks after 9/11 where so clearly the humanity we share was visible, not the things that make us different. And people just, after 9/11, the Berkeley Monastery had a standing room only event. People were lined up outside the monastery listening through the windows to a musical performance by an Islamic singer from Morocco who played and sang beautiful hymns from the soul music. Everyone was just in tears listening. And the monastery holds 100, we had 300 people outside the building. So there's value, there's reward in engaging with people from different backgrounds and experiences. Participate in social and community groups, such as fitness. Notice he goes to the gym first. Churches, that's become second. Hobbies, professional groups, community service organizations that bring a sense of belonging, meaning, and purpose. What else? As an individual, reduce practices that lead to a feeling of disconnection. So, too much time on social media, time with unhealthy relationships in the bar, for example, or in a hate group, disproportionate time in front of screens instead of people. Seek help during times of struggle with loneliness or isolation. Therapy is there. It's works, it's available. Talking. In times of crisis, 988 crisis line. That's in the US, 000 in Australia. Be open with your healthcare provider. If you find a therapist or a friend or a nurse or a doctor or a rabbi or an imam or a monk, a Dharma master, talk about significant social changes, that you're alone, that you feel afraid because you're isolated. Let them understand potential health impacts on you and listen to what they say. Make time for civic engagement. Being a positive, a constructive participant in political discourse, gatherings, town halls, school board, local government. Reflect the core values of connection in the ways that you take part in conversations. Ask yourself, when considering participation, how could kindness change the situation? What would it look like if I treated others with respect? How can I be of service? How can I reflect my concern for and my commitment to others? So this is just one of all these wonderful remedies that Dr. Murty proposes in his report, what an individual can do. Then you go to what parents and caregivers can do, etc. So wonderful advisory to the nation. And I'm here in Australia, but this works perfectly well, no matter whether you're listening in China, whether you're listening in Taiwan, whether you're listening in Brazil or Spain or the US. Our epidemic of loneliness and isolation. This is not a US-based problem. This is a global problem. And other researchers will say it started in 2012 when smartphones became the dominant, smartphones and the social media that they contain became universally adapted everywhere. So contributing largely to the epidemic of loneliness and isolation. There we go. It's an epidemic, it's an illness, and there are wise and kind people are giving us solutions through social media. All right, not through social media, through learning how to deal with our addiction to social media. Okay, check, oh, I don't want to do that. I want to hit chat, that's the one I want. I put the link in my chat, and I hope Locke will put that out to YouTube so folks can find it. Go download Dr. Murty's advisory, see how you can make it work. All righty, I see that Jinwei Shi is here online. Hey, Jinwei Shi, Amitofo.
Amitofo, Dharma Master, Amitofo, everyone. Just, can you hear me well? I'm here in Sudana Center in Ukiah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, we have...
How was your CEI? Did you go to the graduation?
Well, yes, I was there, and it was a beautiful ceremony and very meaningful for students, also for all of us, having a special guest, what was Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, who in the commencement ceremony received a very important award for us, right? The humanitarian award from Master Shenhua. And it was the whole community witnessed that, and we have a very inspiring speech from Dr. Prita Basal from Service Space, and a lot of, she's really devoted her life to service in many ways, and serve as a kind of law advisor for Obama and for Clinton administration and so forth. So she was there with a very important talk. And we just finished a debut yesterday, 4 days of CEI, what is the Contemplative Exercise Immersion. This is kind of the fancy word for a retreat at debut. And Bhikkhu Bodhi lead us from 4 protective meditations, and people are very grateful for his teaching, his embodiment of, and the last maybe thing, what I mentioned today, this very day was a 50 years and anniversary of his being in robes as a Buddhist monk, and was a lot of good moment to celebrate all together. So a little bit context where we are here. And
great, that's really inspiring. So is there anything on the website that we need to point to, or pretty much all the same?
Pretty much all the same. And so far our ceremonies are waiting for start again, and we have a break from online activities, but still, of course, Dharma Master, your lecture is Saturday, and tomorrow Sunday is in another channel, City of 10,000 Buddhas live channel. You can find the links over there. And you can join 7:30 p.m. As well, on Friday is the still continue the series of Rabbi Heng lectures on Song of Enlightenment. And Professor Marty Verhoeven also take a break. The semester is over officially yesterday, and today we have a commencement. And we'll start again our classes in September, probably in the beginning of September. We'll let everyone know when they were gonna return.
Alrighty. Okay. Well, thanks for the report on the DRBU commencement. We gave the Distinguished Humanitarian Award to Bhikkhu Bodhi. He's the 4th recipient of it. And Dr. Preeta Bansal gave that wonderful commencement address. She was, as Jinwei Shi mentioned, she was President Obama's legal counsel in the White House, and she's now chairperson of the board at United Religions Initiative. Yeah. Maybe we'll have a link for her talk next week if once it's posted.
Oh, for sure. I really recommend it to watch it. This is really worth it to listen.
All righty.
Okay.
Thank you. Make sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
All righty. So we're going to conclude today with our dedication of merit and invite everybody to make a wish on your own, how you would like to share the merit. And next week we'll be back with the last two sets of 10 verses from Bodhisattvas praising the Buddha and his wisdom, and preparing for the arrival of Manjushri Bodhisattva and his setting in motion the pilgrimage of Sudana. Please make a wish and dedicate merit with us. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward, may all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. We'll conclude by bowing to the Buddha. We'll invite you to join. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. All right, that will do it for us for today. We'll see you all next week. Amitofo. Bye, everybody.